I'm really excited about what we shared today in hips and knees. And today was session 2 of the full body fix. We have so much more to go in this full body fix. And now at this time, we're going to go into questions and answers. So full body fix attendees can ask me questions. We'll have comments. If you have comments you want to share or positive shares about things that you learned from today's session. Also, I want to give you a very special opportunity. I only give this opportunity 4 times per year during the week of the full body fix. So during this week only, I'm offering a semi-private consultation. You can meet with me directly and we can talk about your goals, your objectives, any hurdles that you're up against, what you want to achieve. I would love to connect with you personally. We call this session, It's All About You. It's not a regular full body fix session. It's not one of these full education sessions as you just experienced. It's a private session, a semi-private session where there's 3 to 5 individuals from the full body fix attendees. And we get to connect together, have a great conversation. And so I highly suggest that you do that. If there's something that you would like to learn about how to become one of my VIP specialty individuals, in other words, that's what we call our clients. We don't call our clients clients. We call our clients VIPs because they are very important people to us who become very impressive physically. So I'm inviting you, connect with me in a semi-private session. Patricia has dropped the link in the chat now. All you have to do to schedule one of those sessions is go to the chat, click on the chat, and then see that link, and then use the scheduler to see what times we still have available, and they're filling up fast. I know that we only have a few session spots left. I know that, but we have some session spots that have filled up. So definitely want to, if that's something you're thinking about doing, definitely a good idea to take advantage of that in session 2, because I will often offer this in session 3 and session 4, but sometimes the spots are no longer available. So click on the chat now if you'd like to learn about how to become a VIP of ours and go into the full body development system that we have for those near the age of 50 and over to get awesome optimization in your body, strength, increased bone density, decrease pain, stiffness, optimized function, quality of life, all those things that are important to you. And then we have an entire team of experts. We actually even have an orthopedic specialist, medical doctor on our team. And we have musculoskeletal experts at doctorate level on our team, world-class physiologists. So we take our VIPs through a training system, and then you get extra help along the way as needed. So it'd be a really good idea, if that sounds interesting to you, to schedule a VIP, a private VIP session with me. And that's called It's All About You. And that is in the chat now. So go ahead and click on the chat and schedule that's It's All About You session. And with that, let's turn it over to you and let's have some personal connection now in Q&A. So how do you participate in Q&A? You go to the bottom of your Zoom toolbar if you have a question that you'd like to ask, and you click reactions. And that reactions button looks like an emoticon, like a smiley face, and has a plus sign on the head. You click reactions, and then you'd go to click on raise hand. When you raise hand, I'll see that your digital hand is raised. And then the order in which our full body fixers raise their hand is the order in which I'll call on you. So go ahead, if you'd like to ask me a question, have any comments, positive shares, go ahead and raise your hand, and I'd love to chat with you. And we'll give you all just a moment to figure out how to do that for those of you who are not used to Zoom. And we'll get started here. And one thing I'll ask you to do, if you don't have video or you don't have the capability to have video now, that's okay. But we definitely prefer video because it just makes the interaction that much better. So we will give you a link to unmute. We'll send you an invite to unmute once I bring you up on screen with me. And then we'll also give you an invite to start video if your video isn't already started. With that, let's turn it over to Mo. And please correct me if I pronounce your name incorrectly. And Mo, welcome. How are you?
Hi, I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Good. Very good.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That was a really useful session. I think for me, the issue that I've been having over the past, sorry, my time is going. Give me one sec. Sorry. Yeah, the issue that I've been having over the past year or so is my right knee, and on the inner part of my knee, when I walk or when I run, it hurts and it's actually quite painful. I started swimming, and every time I try and do anything that involves opening up my hips, I feel that pain on my knee. And so I was wondering what I could do, because I know I figured I needed to some help with strengthening it, but it's what to actually do to strengthen it. And so I've stopped running because it was getting more and more painful. So I just wanted to know if there's anything I should or should not be doing.
Sure, absolutely. Um, could I look at your knees for a second? Would that be okay with you?
Yeah, sure. Let me move the phone a bit.
So,
So it's
so,
this
so
knee.
all
I
I
don't know
really
if you
need
can
to
see it.
see, so I need to see you from the standing position,
Oh,
and
from
then I just
standing.
need,
Okay.
yeah, and I just need to see you from about the abdomen down to the knee. So,
From the
yeah,
abs down to the knee.
yeah, and
So
so
I don't know.
kind of
Can you
like
see
with
me?
some, like with some distance. So like this, but seeing the knee.
I'm trying to think where to put it. Huh. Okay. I don't know about. Can you see me
There you
from there?
go. Yeah, yeah. Uh-huh.
Do you need to see both knees or just the one?
That would be good. Yeah. Are both knees bothering you?
No, just the one. It's just the right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. You have so do you see on your right knee how you have that tissue more kind of going towards the middle of your knee? So you have it more of a medial or an inward draw to your right knee cap
Mm.
or your patella, which is called your patella.
Mhm.
So your knee, I can see, I mean, we're not doing lunges or squats or anything yet, but I can see that your knee definitely has a tendency to want to fall to the inside. So oftentimes a lot of these pain issues is definitely can have to do with strength. Definitely,
Mm.
absolutely. But the
Mhm.
biggest underlying factor, strength is really kind of a result of an other two important things. And one is what we call motor control, which is basically like your neurological system's ability to control the alignment. And sometimes it's really refined alignment. It's like how your femur is turning or rotating or positioning while you're doing a lunge or a run or jumping to one foot then the other, which is what a run is. A running is actually a single leg activity. Most people think of running as a double leg activity. You use both legs to run, but it's one leg at a time. So it's a single leg activity. So your full body weight is landing
Mm.
on one foot. You need to have really good alignment to kind of get away with running, especially any volume of running at all. So running is not bad, but running can become bad really easily for those who have any level of misalignment, and misalignment in human is very easy to occur. So I see that your right knee is turning in. I think what we talked about today in terms of keeping hinge joint, not letting the knee fall in, these things are going to be crucial to you. So I'd spend a lot of time optimizing that in a more controlled setting, like the lunge, like a squat. And you can exercise without your shoes on because this will help strengthen your feet. I didn't look at your feet, but your feet also, like we talked about in session one,
Mhm.
your foot can roll in. And then if you have the knee stuff and the lack of hip control of the knee, this all leads to that shear stress in the knee. So focusing on that first. And then did you find that when we did the hamstring exercise where you bring the leg up and go out, this was a tight one for you?
Yeah, my hamstrings are extremely tight. Just even bending over at the sink, or they're very, very tight. Yeah.
So one thing that happens, like we talked about in today's session, this specifically the semitendinosus and membranosus will come down, and the semitendinosus attaches to pes anserinus tendon, which, long story short, is a tendon that goes down, attaches to your lower leg bone, and can rotate your knee inward. So if your hamstring muscles on the medial side are tight, they can help rotate the knee inward, and then that'll increase the shear stress. So that's the other factor. One thing is motor control, and that's just maintaining proper alignment, really, and developing the motor awareness of that. And then the
Mm.
mobility factor has to do with the range of motion, especially of those medial hamstring tissues for you, right? Because if those are restricted, even if you kind of have good alignment, you do something like running, it's really hard to control when a tissue is restricted, because it's restricted. It's still going to want to pull excessively to the inside. So I would address those two things and do stretching for that area. And then you'll start to realign your knee. And I think what you're feeling is just simply the effect of having those misalignments. It's just creating inflammation. The tissues get muscle guarded, the tissues get inflamed, they send pain signals through the nervous system. And we just need to unwind all that and go the opposite direction towards alignment.
Okay. Would you suggest, thank you, would you suggest avoiding kneeling? Because what I've noticed is if I kneel, when I try and get up from kneeling, it's almost like the knee's locked, and then it's quite painful to walk. Or should I still continue to do stuff like kneeling, but maybe, I don't know.
Sometimes kneeling can be good if you use a really soft pad, because there's certain exercises that are good to do from the kneeling position. So there's mobility that's developed when we're in the kneeling position, but yeah, it can really get kind of a brutal position on the knees, especially getting up from there, because you're in a end range position, and then it's a lot of pressure with the knee far over the foot, depending on how you get up, right? So if you're going to kneel, I would suggest you you don't just kneel, you use like padding underneath your shins also. So like the shin is holding some of the weight, and your knee is holding, if that makes sense. Yeah. And then, for now, I would use support to get up. Like, don't just put your whole body weight on that knee, because obviously the tissues have been probably inflamed right now. So, and if your knee joint sticks, so if it's like it almost feels like you can't straighten your knee, this is a common sign for torn meniscus. So torn cartilage in the meniscus, which is the knee cartilage, the meniscus. When it gets torn, it puts like these loose bodies into the joint, and sometimes it can be like jamming something in the door where it doesn't want to close all the way. So that's and sometimes just simply working on your alignment and like letting that inflammation decrease and then working back into alignment can help position that cartilage body so that it won't have that issue. I mean, I can't say that for sure you have that, but based on what you shared with, it's a very common thing, a torn meniscus and then locking out with the joint. This is not allowing it to straighten all the way. This is very common. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, you're welcome. And Mo, come see us for an It's All About You session. We can help you develop all of that stuff. And next up, we have Michelle Garcia. Hi, how are you? Welcome.
Hi, it took me a minute to unmute myself.
All good, all good.
Hi. I'm not sure if this is a question. Maybe a question will come in at some point. It's more like a comment, I guess, to start with. So I'm 33 years old, and when I was in my 20s, any sort of exercise that I did, there was no pain at all. And then I think in my early, like when I turned 30, I started to do calisthenics at home, because that was the beginning of or it was probably like 31. That was the beginning of the pandemic. And then I went back to the gym and I started doing powerlifting, and the goal there was to just get stronger. But then I started to experience some pain, especially when I was doing deadlifts in my hips, and it was pretty excruciating pain. Like I would have to just stop the exercise. And so what I did is that I just started doing some like hip flexor kind of stretches, and then some glute activation kind of exercises. And that really helped. So then I went back to the deadlifts, so then I can do that now. But from time to time, I still notice some pain in my knees that I didn't experience before. And that's like when I do lunges. And so I just wanted to say that the session today was very, very helpful. I have been doing the leg abductors. I didn't realize that I was doing them wrong, because I was I think that in my leg, instead of like drawing it out, I was kind of drawing it in. And I thought that that was the way to do it, right? Because all I saw was like a little diagram of how to do this exercise. And so I really appreciate that. And I guess from today's session, what I'm taking with me is the importance of being aware, I guess, how my body is supposed to be moving, you know, and being aware of that, and the importance of like doing these exercises, because I've always known the importance of stretching, but I think it's not until recently that I've had those different pains that I've realized the importance of mobility as well and being aware of that. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing.
There wasn't a question there, I guess. It was more like a comment.
Yeah, I can give you some feedback on it, but yeah, it's really good. Thank you for sharing the story. Yeah, it's interesting. Like, so the nervous system works a lot like the immune system in terms of like sensing foreign stuff that it thinks isn't supposed to be, right? So that the immune system's job is to find foreign invaders, whether it be a cold bug or flu bug or, you know, coronavirus, or right, or if you smash your hand and the tissues get bruised and damaged, the immune system senses this and repairs tissue. Nervous system works very similarly, especially with the somatic nervous system. So what happens is like the nervous system will find that the tissue had excess stress. So it had way more stress than it felt that it should have, or that the position that that the tissue is going into is past what it's adapted to, past where its calibration setting is. In other words, like if all you ever used to doing is opening your bicep or your elbow this much, and then you now try to do this much, and especially under load, you're going to have the nervous system kind of freak out and go back to muscle guarding and tightness, because it's trying to protect and stabilize itself. So that's why like the mobility part is so important, especially with powerlifting, to allow the tissues to have that right range of motion and adapt to that range of motion. But, you know, still at 33, powerlifting is like a good thing. It's definitely awesome. Like one thing, especially for a female, is generally have more risk of osteoporosis, especially as you get older. And powerlifting is absolutely going to increase your bone density. It's going to really give you a lot of anti-aging effects, but then it also has a lot of load, right? There's a lot of heavy like load. So it's interesting because also exercise can give an almost like can work with the nervous system, give an emotional traumatic experience as well. And I think a lot of times with very heavy strength training, the body almost finds the strength training session as an attack. Like it's almost like an assault. So it'll go like stiff and that type of thing after. And all this muscle guarding is really for a protection mechanism. So, you know, I just encourage like with powerlifting to, you know, like do what the Russians do, which is not overtrain so much. Like the American style is more of like, don't always try to increase lifts, but use consistency to then increase the optimization. In other words, like train to your adaptation, don't always train to what you can do. So adaptation is like, what is your body really adapted to versus what you can do? Because I think where we get in trouble with strength training exercise and really pushing the envelope is where you are trying to really break new ground, and you break new ground. So that's, you know, as training to adaptation is more training like moderate and doing it perfectly and focusing on your biomechanics and your optimization and letting that consistency over time increase the performance instead of trying to hit that performance level. This is my philosophy. I train a lot of bodybuilders and powerlifters in my earlier career, and I've just found that type of training can be very abusive, especially over age, like over time, right? Over 40, 50, it changes. So the muscle mechanics and optimization is definitely a way to go in the right direction and protect yourself from that. But yeah, it's one area that I used to do personally that I really have trained. Like it changed a lot. It really changed a lot. So I respect it. I like it. I'm impressed by the level of strength and stuff that kind of training develops. But I've definitely kind of gotten away from that for health purposes. Yeah, because fitness
For health purposes.
Yeah, see, that's like because a lot of people think like, so in terms of health, the couch potato that now becomes physically active and is doing some strength training, especially if it's biomechanically optimized, some aerobic conditioning, some stretching, and they're just become moderately fit, from going from couch to moderate fit is drastic health improvements, drastic. But go from moderate fitness to elite Olympic athlete isn't that much more health benefits, actually. And then I think a lot of people think that it is, and it's actually not that much more health benefits, especially if the moderately active individuals are also very conscious about their diet, right, about their nutrition. So it's not that much more. So once you get to a certain level with fitness, by trying to push the envelope, it's usually a health detriment. It's not a health increaser. It's a fitness increaser, but it's not a health increaser. So fitness can go up while health goes down. And at some point, when you start having a lot of performance, you have to make a decision on what's most important. Do I want to be like athlete and let some of this excessive mechanical degeneration set into my body, or do I want to have optimize my health and be strong enough for an optimal life, you know? So there is a decision that has to be made. There's definitely the 1%ers that are just genetic freaks, so to speak, and their body just handles the rigors of that really well. But most of us mortals can't get away with that, especially over decades of that kind of training. So
I see. I do have a question now. I thought of it as you were talking. I appreciate the feedback, by the way. When we were doing the squat, I noticed that you didn't ask, I don't know his name, the person
Keith.
who was modeling,
Keith?
Keith. You didn't
Yeah.
ask him to put his feet outward a little bit. And that's what I do when I do a squat. I was taught that I'm supposed to be like shoulders width apart and then kind of slightly put my feet out like this. And then so then my knees follow that alignment. So I noticed that you didn't do that. Why did you not do that?
So if you look at the human anatomy in the pelvis, you'll see that the hip joint is more on the front side of the pelvis. And so if you think about the hip joint being on the front side of the pelvis and then taking your feet and opening them up, what you're doing is you're starting to souffle the pelvis. And then in the back at the sacroiliac joint, so the bottom of the spine, this is the sacrum, where it attaches to the pelvis, that's the sacroiliac joint. So the cartilage in there, you're smashing the cartilage and you're creating additional shear stress. So most powerlifters, especially by the age of around 50 or so, and oftentimes younger, they'll end up with a lot of sacroiliac joint issues because of degeneration in the sacroiliac joint. And part of it is simply just because they train, well, with really heavy loads, number one. Number two is with the feet turned out, because it's taking the pelvis and opening the pelvis like that and adding additional pressure. And also, especially those who have limited hip internal rotation. So if you have limited hip internal rotation, like we looked at today, and you're training the tissue, the position in which you strength train in is, well, the position in which you train in is the position in which you will strengthen in. So if you're strengthening with the feet turned out a bit, then the external rotators are a little bit shorter. They're going to get stronger at a shorter position. And so if you already have limited hip internal rotation, that's just going to encourage those mechanics that much more. So it's like I advise feet should be totally parallel. And also, like, how do you know that one's 10 degrees and one's 7 or 6 degrees? You don't. So when you know parallel much closer, you can see when they're parallel. So for all of those reasons, and based on the degrees of hips, and like, we've went through meta-analysis of thousands on this subject alone, and we found that those are the mechanics at play. So it makes most sense to have the feet straight. Yeah.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, in the powerlifting world, you won't hear this, and they'll debate that. But like, for me, like, all of our background is from the sports medicine world, or orthopedic, very high level orthopedic, like Dr. Trent Nestler, who's one of the biggest movement specialists in the world and also in the US. And he also actually, you'll see him in the 5th session. So he's also teaches like parallel feet for these reasons that we're talking about. Yeah.
Okay. I'll pass this along to my brother. He's 23 and he does powerlifting, lifts much heavier than I do. And yeah, he does open up his feet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you're 23, that's like, that's why we focus on those, like, or near the, really everything we do would be great for a 14-year-old, but usually they're not as smart as you. They don't listen that well. You're a really intelligent individual that you're in our group here, because most people have to become 50, 60 and have their body really giving them problems to actually pay attention to some of this stuff, where they're more interested in how ripped their abs are and how they, and those results are cool, and we help people achieve that. But yeah, it's really smart to start paying attention to these things when you're younger. That's really the time, ideally, to do it. When you're near 50 and over, that's when you get the biggest result, because you have to do it. Otherwise, you're going in a direction you don't want to go. You're going to total dysfunction and basically loss of life. So that's why around the age of 50 and over, if you do these things, it's a life transformer. It's just night and day. Whereas when you're 23 years old, you can train with your feet out and lift heavy weight and like get away with a lot of stuff that you then deal with once you're 50 or over, roughly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah. I think it'd be cool for you to do our training system. Like, everything you learn would be so cool to go back into your other training you're already doing too. Just food for thought. But yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Much love to you. And John, hello, sir. You're up next with me here. Welcome.
Okay. I listened to what you were just saying about exercising to your adaptation rather than to your limit. And I did an experiment. I know a guy that does 1,000 push-ups a day. He does 100 every hour for 10 hours. And so I started exercising that way. I didn't get up to 100. I got up to 18 push-ups each hour. And after I'd been doing that a few months, I tried to see how many push-ups I could do, and I couldn't do but about 20. And I was kind of shocked, 18 wasn't really that hard. I didn't feel like I was pushing my limit, but I couldn't do much more than that. And whereas I find that if every time, I've gotten problems now. I've got a really bad arm. I'm not doing push-ups right now, but if I go to, not really painful, but if I go pretty close to as much as I can do and do 3 sets that way, then I keep progressing and get where I can do lots of push-ups at a time. But doing it 180 a day in sets of 18 where I wasn't pushing myself each time, I didn't get any improvement in how many I could do. So
Yeah.
how does that fit with the guys exercising to their adaptation but not pushing themselves?
So you're saying with pushing yourself, you got more, or with training to your adaptation, you got more?
Well, if I do push-ups where it's just comfortable, I don't improve. I don't get where I can do more push-ups, even if I'm doing, like I say, I was doing 180 push-ups a day at a comfort level, but then, or maybe a little more than a comfort level, but not much. But if I do my push-ups till I feel like I'm really, I don't work too hard. I'm too lazy or something. I don't like pain enough. But but if I push toward my limit on each set, then I get where I can do more and more push-ups until I overdo it, and then I quit for a while and start over. But
yeah. Well, yeah. Yes. Asking your nervous system to recruit as many muscle fibers as you can and go to high fatigue is the greatest stimulus, and therefore stands for the greatest reward. But also, like, push-ups, for example, is for the upper body, is like the number one thing that injures people, because first of all, almost nobody does a push-up correctly and stabilizes their scapula correctly. And so, 50% of men over the age of 50 have a torn rotator cuff. So if, I can't tell you how many people I've talked to who tell me, oh, I did a push-up program and how many push-ups you should do in 30 days and this and that. Everybody comes because it's a very accessible thing. You don't have to go to the gym. You don't have to do, right. It's just at home. I can do push-ups right now. So, and usually the result is, yeah, but then my elbow, but then my shoulder. There's always, the story always ends with that. So it's, exercise goes wrong in terms of thinking about the performance or the body composition. Always, the more fit people get, the more broken they get. There's a few percentage, maybe less than a few, that are genetic freaks that can get away with it for a long period of time. But the rest of us, like, if you're training for performance, if you're training for body composition, your body's not intended to function like that. It's about function. It's about how the mechanics of the body work. So if you focus on that and you were to change your push-ups to how many perfect push-ups can I do? Learn how to do the proper push-up, then how many push-ups can I do with perfect body alignment? Now you're going to strengthen your core differently. You're going to strengthen your spine and all the support muscles and the stabilizers and your neck, and everything is going to get that much better. But if you just go to high fatigue, high failure, you're going to reinforce compensatory patterns, because that's what happens. I mean, if you watch like sporting activities like boxing or UFC and that type of thing, they're highly skilled, highly functional athletes. And what happens in the last round, in the final minutes? They totally lose motor control. You have someone that's super skilled that starts dropping their hands and doing funky motions that they know they shouldn't do. Why? Because the tissues are getting so fatigued, they're not able to stabilize and hold proper alignment. So now if you apply that to exercise, which is why CrossFit injuries are so high, is not necessarily because there's any exercise in CrossFit that, is so bad. It's the way the exercise plan is set up to where you go to high fatigue trying to maintain proper alignment, and they don't. You go into compensatory patterns. You start using muscles in a way that weren't intended to be used in that exercise that way. And then the stress, for example, like with the push-up, if you start losing scapular stabilization, your humeral head will start jutting forward out of the joint, putting pressure in the labrum. That's a good way to get a torn labrum. And so because you're not stabilizing properly, then what happens is the muscle contraction exits through the joint. It's what we call attenuation of force at the joint. So now you're having shear stress and attenuation of force at the joint. So now you're trying to target the tissues, but you're getting joint damage in the process, right? So it's really common, especially for push-ups. So it's not that you only train in your comfortability, it's you start at your comfortability, you start at your adaptation. And there's a spectrum. So like for a beginning exerciser, one of the really cool things about being a beginning exerciser is your adaptation is somewhere around 35% of what you can do. So if you just start doing aerobic exercise and you're totally out of shape aerobically, versus what you can do. So if it's as fast as you can go for a mile, kind of just think about it conceptually, it's about 35% is your adaptation. So anything beyond there is going to give you results, right? Or in strength training or applied to any exercise. Now, once you go from beginner to intermediate, it's going to be about 66%, 65% of what you can do roughly is your adaptation, right? So now you have to increase intensity quite a bit. And then for an advanced individual, it's only like another 10-ish, 5-ish%. So what I'm saying is to increase results, yes, you want to train just past your adaptation. Yes, you need to have a progressive overload to get exercise results. And yes, occasionally you should even train towards the direction of what you can do and go to complete high fatigue. But depending on where you're at in terms of the spectrum of beginner, intermediate, or advanced, you don't need to push the envelope as far as you think, especially if your goal is health optimization and not strength optimization or fitness optimization, but health optimization, because you will arrive at fitness optimization. Fitness optimization is achieved by consistency, not by trying to set an Olympic record. So especially when we're considering health. So yeah, if you ask your nervous system and your muscles to do the maximal amount, you're going to develop for maximal amount. But my question becomes, what are all the negative results that you're creating in the process? And I promise you that if you keep like that is, it's a lot of negative results. And nobody talks about that in fitness, because I mean, who wants to hear that? And all the young people and stuff that are buying all the stuff on YouTube and stuff, they don't want it. Then, you know, it's not as interesting. But when you're around 50 and you want to keep your body functional, it becomes an over, right? It becomes really interesting. So yes, you need to go past adaptation, and yes, you need what we call progressive overload, which means that you go beyond what your body's used to by about 10%. You go past by about 10% per week, and you can't just keep going week after week after week of 10% additional. You got to back off. You got to back off depending on how fit you are. Might be every other week you back off again, back to an easier load. Might be every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks, depending on age, depending on your overall health, if you have any pathologies, any type of immune conditions, and stuff like that. It depends on a lot of things. But yeah, I'm not a fan of doing the push-up programs at all. And, you know, and you're talking to a guy, by the way, at one time when I weighed 205 pounds, I bench pressed 435 pounds, which is not a world record, but it's a highly respectable amount of load. 435-pound bench press for a 205-pound guy. So I've been there, I've done that. I have the t-shirt, and then I also have the research and all the background to know, like, well, it's interesting. Yeah, it was fun. And yeah, I got there by doing very heavy loads and going to failure. But there's also a whole other side to this whole fitness thing that we need to think about if we want to live to age 100 and be fully functional to that age, right? So, and that's the way I think about it. It just really changed the paradigm on exercise. Yeah. So,
Thank you.
so what do? So what you do is you don't do to total exhaustion and fatigue. You do at least until you can't keep that perfect body mechanics and alignment. You know, like we teach push-up in our training system. We teach how to do a perfect push-up. And then the goal would be keep perfect to fatigue. As soon as you lose perfection, that's when you stop. Not the rep. It's based on what we call repetition to substitution. You continue executing until you have to substitute movement patterns and other muscles. And at that moment you stop, because otherwise every rep past that is a training of dysfunction. For every rep you do in dysfunction, you're training your body for high stimulus into dysfunction, right? And so that's what really is where we get that damage from.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome, sir. Pam. Hi, Pam. How are you? You're up next with me here.
Hello.
Hello. I can
Hi,
hear you.
can you hear me?
Yeah. Looks like we have
Okay.
camera, but it's black,
Oh.
black screen. So
Oh, okay.
it's okay.
Oh, okay. Well, let's see. I studied yoga most of my life, and I did get injured. And then I studied Iyengar yoga, where you study how to do the poses in alignment, which I think it's kind of funny that it seems like alignment is so elusive. Anyway, when I went through menopause, my whole body fell apart, and I had to quit yoga because, well, I had always been hypermobile, except for my hips, I didn't understand why they would never get hypermobile like everything else. But after I fell apart with menopause, instead of being hypermobile, I would do the pose, and then it felt like my body wouldn't go back to normal. It would just be hyperextended, and I was just in severe pain. And so I thought, well, I just can't stretch anymore. So I quit stretching. You know, I tried to tighten up, and it did stop the pain, but so I slowly started to stretch a tiny bit here and there, and I'm still in that stage of just trying to figure out which small amount of stretching would be good, especially my legs. And anyway, I'm not sure I have a question. I just wanted to, it just seems so funny that I went from hypermobile to trying to figure out a small, moderate stretch.
I hear a
And,
question there for you.
You do, okay. And
Yeah.
it just seems funny that it seems like alignment is so elusive and we have to just like have
Yeah,
a
it
team of
can.
experts watching you to your whole,
It-
Anyway, go
it-
ahead.
It is true, Pam. Yeah, it is. This whole alignment thing is pretty complex. One of the things that makes it complex, and I think what your question is, I'll help you because I think what your question should be is, okay, so what should I stretch and how much do I stretch? And am I stretching the wrong areas? And it's just it's so complex. Why am I having pain and what can I do to optimize that? Right. I mean,
Yeah.
is that an interesting question for you?
Yeah, that's basically it.
So you need to know how many degrees you have in terms of range of motion and where you have restriction. And then it goes back to the conversation that I had with our last two full body fixers. And that really is like, what is your adaptation for those tissues that you can comfortably do? Because that same principle applies to stretching. So what you need to do is really go head to toe. I know it's like, well, how do I do that? And it's like, we'll become a VIP, but I don't know anyone else who does this for mobility other than us. And we actually teach this whole system online as part of many other things we do. But you need to know how many degrees range of motion and where you lack mobility. Where do you truly lack mobility? For example, like if your hip flexors are already really mobile and you keep stretching them, then you can develop hypermobility. That's one of the problems with yoga is it's amazing physical meditation. There's a lot to be said for the quality of life and health that a yoga session will produce. But on the mobility and mechanical perspective, we can run into problems because we don't actually know what is the mechanics of that individual. Should they really spend 80% of the time in stretches that stretch their hamstring when they already have near 90 degrees of hip flexion, right? But maybe then their hip flexors are very restricted. So it's really knowing where your tissues are restricted and then stretching in the right way. So for example, like when we do a stretch, like a sustained hold stretch. So when we do a sustained hold stretch, if you're stretching your chest like this, for example, it shouldn't be like a workout. It should actually go from the nervous system to relax the tissues. So you don't work for a stretch, you relax into a stretch, which yoga teaches when there's another thing that's awesome. So you breathe through it, you relax and let the tissue go. And then you focus in the areas where you actually have restriction, right? And then if you do that, and then you kind of really think about like, where is your comfortability in terms of how much volume your body really needs to have a good result, then I think you're going to have a lot better result. So you would need to first know, where do you actually have mobility restrictions? What are the degrees that are actually deficient? And
I see, that makes sense. Okay. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
mostly my hips, I would say.
Yeah, because like, for example, let's say that one hip is good range of motion, or one hip has deficiency in internal rotation, but the other hip has deficiency in external rotation, but you're stretching them the same, or maybe you spend a little more time on one, right? You have to kind of know where these ranges of motion are so that you can realign. That's the whole goal. It's like, you need to know the degrees so then you can realign. Yeah.
Okay, well, that makes sense. Okay. Well, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And then it very important, we condition strength into newfound range of motion, because we don't want to just be all loosey-goosey. That doesn't really help anything. That actually leads to lack of stability. So once you start to have good increased range of motion, then you need to strengthen into that increased range of motion with light strength training into that newfound pattern, and then build up over time. Because when we stretch, we're actually stretching the encasing around the muscle fiber. We're not actually stretching the contractile fiber really at all. So the contractile fiber is like how the muscles that actually contract and move your body, how they bridge and attach to each other. So without getting too sciencey on you, basically tissues attach at these connection points called actin and myosin. And the tissues literally attached to one protein and another, and they crawl across each other. I know it sounds crazy, but that's actually how your muscles work. And that's what your contractile tissue is. And then around this contractile tissue is an encasing, a fiber encasing. We're actually stretching that fiber encasing And when we change that fiber encasing mobility, then we start to change the length of this contractile fibers, right? So when we change the length of those contractile fibers, you have less attachment points. When you have less attachment points, then the tissue becomes not as strong. So where you have new range of motion, you're not going to be as strong in that position. So now you have to go back and build strength in that new position. And if I give you what all the stuff I just said really simply, when you get new mobility, make sure you strengthen the new area because the tissue will be weaker in that new area.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah, strength has always been my challenge. It's way
Yeah.
easier to stretch for me.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what happened. I just spent my life stretching and less strength. And then
Yeah.
finally
Yeah,
I
that's-
needed more strength than stretching.
Right. Yep. Yeah. Yep. That's very, very possible. Yes, absolutely. Yep.
Well, thank you. That was really helpful.
Also remember, strength training is stretching. You can actually increase mobility with strength training, especially if the
Really?
load is light and yeah, because when you're, if I do a chest fly as a simple example, when you're opening the chest, the tissue is stretching. You're going into a stretch position. So now you're strength training and stretching at the same time. So depending on load, you're actually mobilizing, and all the encasing fiber around, you're training that tissue to be able to be mobile. So an individual that doesn't exercise is really bad because the tissue starts to get adhesive. And so all the fascial tissue starts to get adhesive, and it actually develops anchor points, and it changes its directional pattern, and then it affects the actual tissue mechanics. So when we train proper motions, all the tissues are increasing their functionality to the range of motion in which you use in your exercise. So, yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think with what you'd be a great VIP.
It sounds like it.
Yes. Should come see me. It's all about you session.
Okay.
If you think it makes sense for you.
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
You're welcome, fam.
Okay.
Make it a wonderful Monday.
Thank
See
you.
you.
You too.
See you soon. And Elaine, you are up next with me here. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me? Hi. Yes.
Yeah.
This has been so wonderful and so educational, and I appreciate it so much. I have a question. I've been suffering from some hip pain, like towards the groin, for a while now, and I've recently gotten into exercise quite a bit since I retired, and I've been able to lose weight. And I feel wonderful, and I don't want to stop. I'm so happy with where I am in my life right now. But this pain was finally diagnosed. I had an MRI, and it was diagnosed that I have iliopsoas bursitis of about 6 centimeters. And it doesn't hurt for me to do the things that I love to do most of the time, but occasionally it does. And I was wondering if maybe you had some suggestions of how I could do something to repair that.
Yeah. So, okay. So when we did the hip flexor tests today, were you really restricted in that area?
You're talking about where we rotated out and in, or where we were on our...
Well, out rather, with the lower leg. When the lower leg is going out, this has some relationship. It has
Yes.
some.
If I stand and turn this leg out, this is very painful in here.
Well, I'm talking about the range of motion of your lower leg going out.
Oh, my lower leg going
Because
out.
when your lower leg goes out, so from the position we were testing in. So from the position we were testing in.
We're laying on the ground and turning it out.
Yeah, when your lower leg goes out, your femur is going to rotate in. So
Yeah.
it's unless you have really good balance, it'll be difficult to do from this position. But yeah, you're gonna rotate. No, you're gonna rotate. That's not rotating. That's
Oh.
yeah, that's abducting. Yeah, bring your knee. Yes, that position.
That's
yeah,
not that's not too painful.
Well, it's not about pain, it's about range of motion.
Yeah, I don't know. My
Right.
motion may not be very good.
Yeah.
I don't
So
know.
it does look a little that's not the best angle to really judge
Yeah.
from, but it does look a little restricted. So that, and also the hip flexor. So the hip flexor was where we lay flat and you grab
Yes.
the foot from behind you. That
Yes.
one. Did you find?
Yes. Yes, that was a little painful. And
Yeah,
also the one with the leg straight and pulling it straight up, I cannot get to 90 degrees. Probably 60 is about as far as I can go with a straight leg. Because I know my hamstrings are very tight.
Okay. All right. So yeah, that's so the hip flexor, the hamstring too. Do you do a lot of sitting before before the bursitis started? Before the bursitis started.
Probably before it started, yes. Probably so, because I've been dealing with this for about 5 years now. So
yeah. So that when the tissues get really restricted, they rub on the bursa sac. I'm sure you've had someone that's diagnosed you, and so you know a lot of this already. But yeah, when the tissues get really restricted, they rub on the bursa sac, which is like a jelly-filled sac to help protect tissues from rubbing over the bone, and then it creates inflammation in that sac called the bursa sac. So alignment, like having the right mobility in your hamstrings and your hip flexors, and training with all the right range of motion, and then not doing patterns that aggravate that area. So if you find an area that gets aggravated from certain motions, you're really important that you stop that motion or find out why that's being painful. For example, maybe it's just you don't have enough mobility in tissues, and once you increase the mobility in those tissues, that whole exercise and movement is going to get better for you. So it's always about the motor control and the alignment. Because if we have right motor control and alignment, and we put stress on our body in the form of exercise and physical activity in an aligned position, we develop strength. So strength is a byproduct of using your motor control. You can use your motor control for function or dysfunction, which is really the whole conversation we were having earlier, is, how much do you want to actually push your body for function versus dysfunction? Because at some point that usage of motor control is going to become functional or again dysfunctional, depending on patterns and stuff. So but strength will be developed if you use it. It just what kind of strength and what position. Then the other factor is mobility. So relieving yourself of tissue restrictions and mobilizing those tissues will allow your body to function properly. And usually, almost always, once you have biomechanical optimization, you in other words, right mobility, ranges of motion, and all your joints, and you're staying in alignment, you don't really get, and you're training to your adaptation. In other words, you're not trying to set Olympic records and giving your body compensation for having like inflamed tissues. You usually don't have stuff like bursitis and all these other issues because there's no reason for it. The reason for it is all this mechanical dysfunction. So it's always a matter of finding where the dysfunction is and alleviating your body of that. So, where you see you only have 60 degrees range of motion when you should have 90-ish, then we need to definitely focus on that. Where you see you have deficient hip flexor mobility, we need to definitely focus on that. So there's a lot that I would go back in today's session, like watch again, test yourself, and do the exercises according to where you have restrictions specifically. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think that's alone will help you a lot. Yeah. And then make sure forever really, but for now, take out the exercises that create any aggravation, because that's going to really keep inflaming the bursa sac.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome.
Have a nice day.
You too. You too. And if you'd like to know more, Elaine, come see me at an It's All About You session. We can unravel the onion with you. Chris, hi. How are you? Welcome.
Hi, thanks. So I'm thinking this should be quick. I'm actually a question for my sister. She just got MRI results that she has arthritis in her L4 and 5, which is affecting a nerve, which is creating her leg to be numb. And so I'm wondering, can you program help with anything like that? I mean, arthritis.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, arthritis is a wearing down of the cartilage. So once you start to really wear down the cartilage, and then you cause additional friction where there's not cartilage, yeah, you're going to have a lot of inflammation. So learning proper body mechanics, proper body alignment, learning how to stabilize your core, and allowing the nervous system to know, hey, you're protected and you have this capability with all your tissues, your pain signals will decrease significantly. So a lot of this is about allowing the nervous system to feel secure in terms of stabilizing you and not having causation that it needs to send pain signals. So usually an individual that has, arthritis, for most of it is somewhat part of the aging process. It can be is strongly mechanical, but it's also physiological. So the individuals who are out of shape, overweight, don't have a good diet, that causes additional inflammation in the body, and the inflammation can wear down cartilage, can cause all kinds of issues. But so we work on that. We get individuals optimized and lean and all these things as well. But on the mechanical side, which is really heavily a factor, the most heavy factor, what happens is if the pelvis isn't in the right position and it's causing excess pressure on any disc level, it doesn't matter which one, any disc level, then that'll start to cause a wearing away of that cartilage area. So once you learn, again, the mechanical alignment and the tissues start to stabilize the core better, it decreases those pain signals, because the body it's really like a protection mechanism. Your body's, hey, we have this area here, we're going to create pain so that we don't continually overuse this area. So the solution is having mechanical optimization so that the body feels protected. And once it does, pain does decrease significantly. Yeah.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Spread the word.
But next session 3, we go into pelvis, low back, upper back. So when we do that, then that'll be, your sister should come to that session. Yeah.
Great. That's Wednesday?
Yep, that's on Wednesday. Yep.
Great. All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Welcome. Any other questions, comments, or positive shares, full body fixers, before we sign off from this session 2, the second airing of session 2. That's the best way to put it. So the second airing, we'll have a third airing of session 2 today at 2 p.m. Pacific. And I just want to give everyone an opportunity to make sure that if you would like to ask me a question or comment or you have a positive share for us, that I connect with you. In case you didn't know how to do that, the way to do that is click on reactions. Once you click reactions, you'll click raise hand. So on the Zoom toolbar, click reactions, and then you can click raise hand. Just want to give you all one more opportunity to connect before we sign off from this session. And then Chris, I'll come right back to you, and we're going to go to Dolores, and then I'll come back to you, Chris. Hello, Dolores. One second, we got to get you set up with sound. There we go. Looks like you're unmuted.
Not yet.
No? Oh, you're unmute. Oh, you're not unmuted yet. Okay. Yeah.
Now I'm unmuted.
Now you're good. Yep. Now you're good.
Thanks for these sessions. Saturday session, I really want to be there. However, unfortunately, what happens if we can't? Like, we have a family memorial out of town. Is it going to be recorded?
Yes, it will be recorded and sent to you. Yes, absolutely.
So we have sent session 1 already through email and also in the WhatsApp group. What happens, unfortunately, it's many email providers send emails to junk folder. So you do not receive in your inbox. And a way to avoid that is add Robbie and my email as a contact so it doesn't go to junk folder. So I will drop my email and Robbie's email in the chat. And I will also give you the link for the WhatsApp group because WhatsApp always delivers the messages. And if you want to send me your email, I can resend the email with session 1. And session 2 will be sent later today.
You know, it's session 5, I guess, that I'm worried about. 1, 2, 3, yeah, 5.
Oh, session 5 is going to be on May 28th.
She knows, I think. She
May
knows.
20th. No,
Yeah,
it's
today is
May
session
28th.
2.
May 28th.
I know. And 28th, I can't be.
So yeah, so she'll send you the email with the session replay.
Thank you.
Oh
You're
yeah,
very welcome.
you're welcome. You're welcome. Yeah, and then if for some reason you can't find it because it's in your junk email, which was what Patricia was saying, it's very common for them to go to junk email, then just email Patricia and she can reply with it.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And back to you, Chris.
Hi, so for my sister to be able to sign up, I don't know if Patricia can give me a link that I can, for her to register for the program.
Sure. For the full body fix.
Right.
Yeah.
Especially for her to be able to get the information for Wednesday's class.
Sure.
Yes,
Patricia.
absolutely. I can send the scheduler, the link for the scheduler, or I can send the link for the page that explains about the full body fix. Which one would you like me to
The
send?
one with the explanation would be best. Yeah.
Okay.
And then that has the scheduler in it, right?
Yes. So
Great.
send me an email and chat and I will forward to you.
Great. Thank you.
Welcome.
You're welcome. Okay, full body fixers, we're going to sign off for this session, but we will definitely see you back here on session 3 on Wednesday, where we go into pelvis, low back, and upper back. Looking forward to seeing you then. If you have any questions for us, you can email Patricia. And remember, take that opportunity, if you think it's right for you, to get into an It's All About You session. It's not part of the regular full body fix, but I'm going to give you a free session if you'd like to connect with me to learn about how to become a VIP client of ours. You can schedule that through the link that Patricia has dropped in the chat, and we'll keep this meeting open for just a few minutes so you're able to look at all the links and find anything that you need and look at emails and that type of thing. So much love for you. Make it a wonderful Monday, and we look forward to seeing you soon. Bye for now.